What it is, y'all. Welcome back to another Dragon Ball Daima review. If you guys haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And we need to jump into this because I'm absolutely loving this series so far. This series has been fantastic. Way more hits than misses. And the misses, like, unlike Super, I mean, because let's be real, a lot of Super. Save for, like, the tournament. Like, I loved the future arc with when Trunks came back and all that. But the end of it was kind of sus, and a few things like really got weird about it. The Tournament of Power was off the chain, but the reality is a lot of stuff leading up to that was just really questionable. Like, good story stuff, a lot of things that expounded on the two movies, but... And the Copy Vegeta arc, let's just not even talk about that. But this has been nothing but aces the whole way through, right? The weakest part of Daima has been as good as the strongest part of Super. Fight me in the comments. That's what it's for. That's the hill I'm going to die on. So, when we kick this off, we see Goku and crew are basically checking into the hotel they mentioned in the last episode. They're basically like wrapping it up for the night, and they've got to meet up with Vegeta and Bulma and all them tomorrow. So, as they're checking in, there's these two really sus guys that are just like hanging out. They clearly see the pack. They're looking for trouble, and when Goku takes the headdress off, they find out that that is a Dragon Ball, and I love this. Now, the reason I did this before I did the numbers is because I really want to get to the numbers regarding specifically this portion of the episode. So, I will start off with the animation. I'm going to get to the animation in a minute. I just want to talk about the story level, because I think the story is, like, the best part of Daima. Period, end of discussion. The story has been great. I've been absolutely loving it. The fact that Goku's just... He takes the headdress off. Like, he should know better. But this really just shows the more naive sides of Goku, and I appreciate that. Like, he's just very, like... He's just kind of in his own world at some point. So, these two guys recognize his hair. They don't mention his ears, which I thought the ears would be a dead giveaway, but whatever. They recognize the spiky-haired kid. All the talk of the town is like, finally somebody has beaten the Tamagami and has gotten the Dragon Ball from the third Dragon Realm, and these guys figure it out. Now, right out of the gate, they should immediately know. They should, like, okay, this dude's strong. We shouldn't be messing with him. But, you know, basically they launch this really bad scheme to try to more or less trick Goku into kind of walking away from the Dragon Ball. And it works. The gray dude, he's able to shapeshift into like some kind of werewolf-looking guy, and the other dude, who's kind of like a terror bird-looking thing, basically flies to the window when everyone comes out in the lobby and steals the Dragon Ball, and they take off. I adore that. I like the fact that these guys aren't just, let's fight Goku. They're actually putting thought into their scheme. They're actually, like, giving this, like, you know, real legitimate brain power. You know? They are conniving. They are underhanded. But more importantly, they're not just approaching this from raw brute force, which you kind of expect from Dragon Ball. Or Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super, even GT. These guys are more cunning. And I like that. It really harkens back to my favorite parts of the original Dragon Ball anime that I absolutely loved. So there's so much here to really adore about the storytelling. The storytelling is far from perfect, however. So... I don't know, man. I really got to think about how I'm going to grade this. So I'm totally honest here with myself, rambling aside. I really think, honestly, I'm going to take 1 point and 1 point only. I'm going to take 2 points off. I'm going to take 2 points off, and I'm going to give this an 8 for storytelling. If we start at a 10, I'm going to give it an 8. Number one, I think it's a bit silly that these guys think they can take on Goku, even when he corners them in the cave. Number two, in the later part of the episode, we get like a cutaway gag of Vegeta at like a club, like fighting these guys, which I was just kind of like, I don't know. Dragon Ball and cutaway gag don't really go together for me. Like I wasn't feeling that. So I'm going to take 2 points off and I'm going to give it an 8. Now, before you eat me alive in the comments, 8 is still a really substantial number. But if a 5 is average, and let's be fair, Dragon Ball Super story-wise, up to the Tournament of Power, was, like a little north of average. So to give this an 8 seems a bit harsh, but I had to take those 2 points off, and I've got to like draw the line in the sand somewhere. So I'm going to give it an 8. Maybe if you want to be really critical or really forgiving, an 8.5. But that's that. Sound design wise, there's not a lot to criticize here. The Foley art for the actual battles themselves was on point. All the sound effects were on point. The music is always on point with the series. So I'm going to give that a 9. I don't think it's perfect, but I think it's there's nothing really there overall that pops out at me. But there was also nothing there that like super wowed me. So there's no reason for me to take a point off short of there was no like major wow factor like there has been in some previous episodes. Now, animation, I'm going to give it a 7. Now, hold your horses. The series looks beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. But we're coming off the back of an episode that was animated flawlessly, and I gave that one a really high score. But as we go into this episode, there's some sequences here, some fighting, and even some just general dialogue that I think could have used some sprucing up. So, like, when you see the two villains basically sitting across from each other talking, the camera's just very still. There's a little bit of camera motion, just a little bit, and it's enough to basically create some motion here. But I think there's some still sequences that actually could have used a little bit of something there. Now, I've been very critical of another series that we watch on another channel where they don't do that at all. So I want to give Daima credit where credit's due. They do that a lot. They're much, Toei's really good about the way they treat the series, about the way they, basically the way they stage shots and things like that. So there's no reason for me to go too critical here. I'm going to reel it back in. I'm going to say an 8 because I have it actually running over here in the background. I've noticed a couple things that I was a little critical of earlier. So I'm going to give it an 8 instead of a 7. I still think that's a fair assessment. But during some of the fighting sequences, I do think that there's some choppiness in the footage that they probably could have otherwise not necessarily dealt with. So I'm going to give it an 8. It's not perfect, but it's definitely far cry from average, which would, in my opinion, would be a 5. And it might seem critical compared to my criticisms of the other studio, but knowing what Toei can do, this really feels like almost a cinematic Toei experience just in a series. And I love that. Absolutely love that. So to continue on, essentially, we already talked about the plot and how these guys stole the Dragon Ball, and of course Goku goes and fights him and gets him back, and they didn't stand a chance. The one thing I do love story-wise is how they just kind of treat Goku like this country bumpkin, which he really is. He's very naive. He's in it for he never takes this portion of the story seriously. There's very little, if I was going to take anything else off for the story, there's very little reminder of what the stakes are. The stakes are always really super low. So I don't know. But I do enjoy the ease of it. Like, it's really easy to get into. But we do meet Bulma and Vegeta, Piccolo, and Hybius, and they're basically at their like little rest stop area. And they mentioned that their ship got stolen. And they mentioned that Vegeta got into a fight with some guys at a club. And literally it's a nightclub, and it's funny in its own right, but was a little distracting because they treat it like a cutaway gag where they mention it, then they have like a 1.5-minute sequence of Vegeta just like getting in a circumstantial battle with these guys completely at random. So once again, if I'm going to take some narrative points off, I'm going to do that. Then they kind of go back and they talk about how they we get now Goma, and I can't remember the other dude's name, but the brother of the Kaioshin, where they're talking about how they stole Dende, and they find out that Goku beat the Tamagami, and then they're kind of going back and forth about this, but it's not really enough to create the stakes that I want, and that is kind of my biggest argument with this. It's very funny. Goma at this point does not feel like a very credible threat. And I'm sure at the end of the day, they've already warned that he could become a threat. But they're really building up another threat. We'll get to that here at the end of the episode. So these two kind of go back and forth. And there's not really a lot to say about this portion of the episode just because it's a lot of Goma just kind of whining and being very childish. Reminds me a little bit of like Zeno mixed with Pilaf, really. Like Zeno mixed with Pilaf. It's really funny. Because he's supposed to be high and mighty, but he's very childish. But, you know, he has greater aspirations, which Zeno never really did. But Zeno was very naive and childish. And I kind of like that. So when the crew finally meets up with Bulma and Vegeta and Piccolo and Hybeast, when they meet up with the other half of the crew, I love it because Goku kind of flaunts that he's already beaten the Tamagami. He's going to go off and fight the other one. He's like, Vegeta, you can go find Dende. Go beat up Goma. I'm having my fun. And I love Vegeta's just not having any of it. Like, period, end of discussion. But logic be logic. They've got to, you know, they take off and they leave that crew there. And the long and the short of it is after Goku and crew leave, then the people that actually stole the ship, the people that Vegeta got in a fight with, actually show up. And Vegeta gets a really cool moment here to show off just how, for lack of a better way to put it, how cool his character is. There's just a bunch of dudes that show up. In fact, what's really funny, I thought there was a guy in there that kind of like was very Charizard-esque, and he only like, he shows up at the very beginning, and that's kind of about it. It's like this blob-looking dude, this kind of like assassin-looking guy with some size, and then BoJack Horseman with boxing gloves. But there was like, I swear there was a dude that kind of looked like Charizard like at the beginning, and then you never really get any shots of him. But it was really funny, and as the whole thing goes on, Vegeta just kind of wipes the floor with him. And I love it because he never goes Super Saiyan. He never takes it too seriously. Like he's not out for blood. He's just is like, this is our fight, and I'm going to end it quickly. And I love Hybeast who comes over. He's like, I only had enough time to eat 2 potato chips. Which, it is what it is. Back in the old Dragon Ball days, you'd have been like, oh, everything's happening at the speed of light, whatever. It's kind of funny. It is a little retcon-ish, but, you know, I get it. Like, it was not terribly realistic how they portrayed the passage of time and the original Dragon Ball, even like Saiyan Saga, all that kind of stuff. But I did enjoy the battle, but that's kind of where my main arguments with the animation come in, and I do feel like they did cut corners in a few places. They could have done a better job. I do love some of the blur effects. I do like the way that you guys are coming from my other channel. You know how I criticize the tweens over there. I love the way Toei does their tween shots here. Everything feels very fluid. Everything feels great. Even when they're animating on the twos, it still feels very smooth, and I do love that. So I can't take too many points off the animation, but I got to take a few. Especially in comparison to what we had last episode, which was just off the chain. But, which I know I'm talking them up, but at the same rate, I only gave them an 8. Still, roast me in the comments if you feel like that's necessary. I'm just going to stand on that rating of 8.5 at the best. So, after all this is said and done, we go back to, and I can't remember old girl's name, and I know I talked her up last episode, but the sister of the Kaioshin, who is they're working on this like new Majin Buu-esque creature, and she even mentions, so there's a slight, I won't call it a retcon, I guess it's kind of a retcon-ish. They kind of insinuate that Buu was born from Cyberman beans, which is weird, seeds, which is weird. I mean, beans are a seed, whatever. But they have to plant this Cyberman seed, and she's like, I've only got 2 left. And so they plant the 1, and what's more, it's not Majin Buu, but Majin Ku. Which, can we be real? It's just true golden Buu. I feel like the design here is a little lazy, I'm not going to lie. I'm a little disappointed, but you can see that this is definitely like very Cyberman inspired. It does not look like Boo. I mean, it's like cross between Boo and a Cyberman. It really makes you wonder: is the old witch, like, is she holding something back? I don't think this guy's going to be a super credible threat, but you also got to consider Kid Boo. While they did say he was more dangerous, he wasn't stronger than Super Boo. That's a misnomer. It's a common misconception in the community. Kid Boo was just less predictable. That's what made him more dangerous. So when it comes to this character, I don't think he's going to be super powerful. I just think he's going to be really, like, wild and probably very childish and arrogant. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But that's pretty much where the episode ends. I feel like the design of Majin Ku is very lazy. I was going to make a bunch of jokes about Pangya and it being a golf-playing pirate, but like 4 people would get that joke, if even that. But if you do get the joke, you owe me a thumbs up. So, all in all, I enjoyed the episode. It's a bit of a cool down compared to what we had before. It's not the strongest episode. I don't know if it's in the running for the weakest episode, but that really isn't much of a thing with the series. It definitely is not. Okay, so we've had some episodes that just kind of drug their feet. This one did not, but it did do a lot of retconning and a lot of just weird stuff. So it's not the strongest episode. It's not the weakest episode, but I'd say it's it would not be in the top 5 would be my answer, is the closest thing that I could surmise to that. But I did enjoy it nevertheless. And that's fun. I mean, it's funny to say, like, it's not my top 5 of the 8 episodes we've had, which does say something. But I would rate this series so far way higher than Super. So take that for what it's worth. Anyway, let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll be back with more Dragon Ball Daima, I almost said Super, Daima reviews coming up next week. And we've got some more Dokkan Battle content. I really need to get on the ball with that. I've been really bad about covering it, but we do have a lot of content in the works. So make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll be back very soon.